Hello, this is Valon. Unfortunately, there will not be a movie Monday today because my and Tara have been without power for like a week, so we did not have a chance to watch anything together. Um, but I figured I might as well do something. So in the meantime, though, things should be back to normal next week. Um, and so if Beale Street Could Talk, that's the next movie that we have. That will be next Monday. But I figure I'm gonna do something completely different and talk about Pokemon games. Because I don't know what else to do. I'm super busy with stuff leading up to the fact that I'm moving and that I also have starting to get my teaching stuff together for the school year that's starting up. So a lot of stuff to do. So I just want to do something really quick. But I wanted to kind of share my opinions on Pokemon games because why not? This is the series that pretty much started me to play video games, and I've played ever since then. The first like real game I ever owned was Pokemon Crystal, actually. Um, Although the second one was Pokemon Red. So I've played almost every single game on this list. Most of the ones that I haven't played are like, for example, I never played Blue version, but I played Red and Yellow, right? So there's a couple of those examples, but pretty much everything else works. Now, you notice, so for the tiers here, I changed it a little bit. So before it's S, A, B, C, D. I changed D to Don't Know, and I'll explain what I mean by Don't Know when it comes up, but the reason why I got rid of the D is because I don't think any Pokemon game belong in the D tier. At least any of these. There's some spin-offs that are really bad, but not talking about those. So I think every Pokemon game is at least okay. That's kind of the bare and that's kind of rank of everything, and that's how I see the C tier as like an okay game, sort of middle of the road. Um, that's why we're gonna have that there. And again, I'll explain the don't know when we get to that. I have arranged these in order of release order, so I'll be going through them that way. And also, I'm not gonna be like splitting up the game, so I'm not gonna red's in B tier, but blue is Blastoise. It's bad, so C tier. I'm not doing that. Okay, so that's not a thing. Um, so those are going to be together. And then also the third versions, I don't think they're different enough games. So I'm going to be grouping them together as well. So red and blue and yellow will be in the same tier, basically. And also within the tiers, I am going to be ranking them a little bit as well. So if something is more on the left side of the tier, that means I like it more if it's something on the right side of the tier. But anyway, going that there. Um, and at least give some explanations of where I am with all this. So let's start with Gen 1, red, blue, and yellow. This is hard to talk about because it is the first. And I know people kind of use that to give them like a lot of leeway on things. And some things I think is fair. For example, not just the fact that it's the first game, but also it's on the Game Boy, the original Game Boy. So, they're not going to be able to compare to like the quality of the visuals later on, obviously, but also in terms of like the sprite work and the complexity of the region and stuff like that. You have to give a little bit of credit for that, a little bit of leeway for that. And also like the glitches and stuff, you can give them some leeway with some of them, but honestly, not even the glitches. But for me, that like red, blue, and yellow are just not well made, like in terms of balance. They're super unbalanced in terms of like psychic type. Of course, everyone knows about that, but like the special stat is just like who thought that was a good idea? There's a bunch of dumb stuff, which is like even if they're first time people, you making this game, you still think that like they should probably have done better than that. And this is stuff that's like again the 1 in 256 glitch is so stupid that like they didn't notice. Like it's there's a bunch of stuff like that that's just really confusing. And even if you ignore that, which honestly I don't think you should, my question for this is like, is there any reason to play red, blue, and yellow over any of the other games? And like besides just to do glitches, like not really. I mean, I'll be honest, everyone talks about the first gen Pokemon, but like I think they're kind of boring. There's not many that really have like an interesting design to me. Look, every generation has great Pokemon and has terrible Pokemon, but just as like an overall look, I think Gen 1's kind of boring in terms of its Pokemon. There's very few. There's only a couple I can think of as like standouts. Like, oh yeah, this thing's really cool. A lot of them are just like, here's an animal, but like slightly cartoony, or here's an animal, but it's like a weird color. It's like that's it, and it's just not very interesting. Um, Again, Kanto region is pretty boring. Again, you can maybe type that up a little bit to the graphical limitations of the original Game Boy, but it's still not that interesting. And the story doesn't exist. So, and like it's one of those things where it's like, do you criticize like Super Mario Brothers for not having a story? No, but considering a lot of the other Pokemon games do have actually pretty good stories, it's a factor against it. So honestly, like I again, especially compared to the other games, there's not, especially okay, especially if you're playing the game from like a casual, I just want to play through the game start to finish. Pretty much every other Pokemon game is going to give you a better experience. Um, Again, like if someone wants to argue about, oh, there's more interesting like speed runs or like challenge runs you could do, sure. But again, like I'm just talking about playing through the game start to finish normally. I think I would play pretty much every other game on this list except for Red, Blue, and Yellow. Again, I don't think they're bad. Even in today's standards, they're not like unfun games. It's not like the in that sense, but they're just every other game is improved on them to some degree. So I am going to put them in C and just go from there. And they are actually on the bottom, so I do rank these last. Um, and again, Yellow had Pikachu and Team Rocket, and that's it. So like Jesse and James, like that's it. Nothing else is different. So yeah, it's the same game. It fixed a few glitches, but that's kind of it. Um, Gen 2 definitely improved on Red, Blue, and Yellow, so it's definitely higher than them. It fixed again a lot of the bugs. It made the balance a bit better. The stat stuff is still a bit weird in terms of how the stats are calculated with the whole stat experience thing, and so this is the whole thing. If you've heard about how like Gen 2 competitive Pokemon is like really tanky and really slow, that's why, because every Pokemon could like sort of max out all of their stats, so like every Pokemon could be as bulky as they wanted without also like decreasing their attack power. So anyway, there's that. Which, but honestly, I don't think that's that important in terms of viewing these as games, because like Red, Blue, and Yellow, you notice if like stuff is like problematic with the balancing. You don't really notice for Gold, Silver, and Crystal if you're just casually playing through the game. Um, but it still has some. It definitely has some issues still. One of the problems with one of the things that people praise about Gold, Silver, Crystal is you get to visit two regions. You get Johto and Kanto, and I mean it was kind of cool, but like Kanto's really bare bones, and Johto by itself is pretty minimal. Like, if the games were just Johto and no Kanto, people would be like, wow, these games have like nothing to them. So that's definitely something. And Johto, I'd say, is a little bit more interesting than Kanto, just like, at least there's a little bit more variation in the cities. Like, the Ecruteak is like a little bit different. So that's something, but it's not super great. The Pokemon, they're not boring, but they're just kind of weird, but like, some good weird, some bad weird. So I guess it's a little bit better than Gen 1, but it's still kind of, I don't, there aren't many Pokemon that I get in Gen 2. I'm also like, oh, I love this thing. It's like, there's a couple, but not really. Um, the story is also kind of non-existent. I mean, the whole thing about like Team Rocket's trying to come back together and basically like do stuff about like, hey, Giovanni, notice us, Senpai, right? Like, it's a little bit more interesting than Gen 1, I guess. Um, Silver is a more interesting rival than Blue. Everyone talks about the jerk rivals, and oh, we need like Blue again. It's like, he was just an asshole. That was his whole character. Like, why is this interesting? So at least Silver is a little bit more interesting, and it works there. Gen 2 does have a level balance problem. That's definitely true. Once you get to Ecruteak City, because you can go east to Mahogany or west to like Sandwood at the same time, you have like Pokemon around the 7th gym that are like level 19. And it's like, what? So that's definitely an issue with that. Kanto actually kind of has that problem too, I've noticed. But Johto, it's more noticeable. And that's definitely something. So, and again, like especially again comparing to later games, just a lot of other later games have just done stuff that's better. So I don't think like Gen 2 still feels it's definitely improvement over Red, Blue, and Yellow, but I don't think they're really that much. They're not enough to get it out of C tier, I would say. Again, I don't think C is bad. C is not bad. Okay, C is still decent, but and again, they're better than Gen 1, but they're not. It's not enough to put them into B tier. I'll phrase it that way. They're not good enough to go up into B tier. Um, so yeah. Then we get to Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald. Now, I can definitely feel that Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald. I know that like from what I remember, there was kind of I'm thinking like 10, 15 years ago. No, I guess more like 12 years ago. There was sort of a little bit of a backlash in Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald. It was sort of like a lot of people felt that it was like too different from Gen 1 and Gen 2. But I actually liked the difference. To me, it was like, oh, this feels new. This feels different. It feels more interesting. The fact that it's on the Game Boy Advance definitely helps with that. But even then, like, the colors in this game are really nice. Like, the visuals with the design of Hoenn and stuff, the colors really pop really well in these games. So, that helps a lot there. Again, Hoenn is a fun region. People always talk about the water being a problem, but, like, I don't know, use repels. I don't really have a problem with it. And even then, like, most of the water routes are optional. so you don't have to go through a lot of them. Actually, something kind of fun, interesting to know: if you actually count up the water routes and count up the land routes, you end up with the exact same number of routes. Which is the whole, Groudon Kyogre balance. Makes sense. The new Pokemon, I think the Gen 3 Pokemon are basically when I'm like, okay, now overall I can say I like this generation of Pokemon. Again, definitely some that I don't like, but overall I like Gen 3 more than 2 and 1. There's definitely a number of Pokemon from Gen 3 that I like a lot. Um, so that's better. The story, well, I mean, it's not like a good story, but it is a story, basically. It's something. You have, the whole thing with, like, the legendaries. That's actually kind of the first time legendaries really got involved in the plot. But it was something. Emerald, especially with the two teams competing against each other, I think sort of was like, oh, this is interesting, and it actually, there's a little bit to it. I'm not saying it's an amazing narrative, but it's something, right? And I definitely think that the double team idea should be something that they kind of, well, they did kind of come back to it for Black and White 2 a little bit, but anyway, that should be something they kind of look into a little bit more. Um, but yeah, I definitely think Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald are a noticeable step up in terms of quality with everything. They do still feel. I have a problem coming back to the games a little bit, mostly because this is the Gen 3 was the last game before the physical special split. So, and that was that's like the last like gameplay hurdle where it's like once you clear that, then it's like, oh, okay, now I'm playing like modern Pokemon, right? Even though that's not, So that's kind of how it feels. So that holds it back a little bit, which I know is like not the game's fault, but like it is how a thing about it. But yeah, I feel like Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald were sort of like given the Game Boy Advance and the fact that it's Gen 3, they kind of did like the best they could in a sense. So but again, they still held back because it is Gen 3 and is on the Game Boy Advance, so there's only so much they can do. So I am going to put them pretty high in B tier. I know people. Okay, so Emerald. I think most people would not say anything too weird that I have Crystal and Yellow in the same thing as their previous games. But Emerald, I've seen this when people start to be like, oh, Emerald is like it's noticeably better. I honestly, well, okay, the double team thing is better, and like again, Battle Frontier is nice. Honestly, I was never a huge fan of the Battle Frontier because I don't know, I just didn't find that interesting. Well, it was kind of interesting, but it just felt like kind of unfairly difficult challenges. Well, not like, well, again, difficulty is the wrong. It felt unfair a lot of the time. How this works is just kind of random luck. Oh, even outside like the Battle Factory, there's just a bunch of bullcrap that can happen. I was never super like invested in the Frontier. Never like, oh, I gotta beat everything. I was like, not really my thing. Granted, it's better than not having it. But for example, I've seen people who are like, oh, this game doesn't have Battle Frontier. That means it's therefore bad. And it's like, no, right? You can. That's not how that works. But still, so is Emerald better than Ruby and Sapphire? Yes, but I see this as, is it still fundamentally the same experience? And my test for this is, if you played Emerald first, is there any reason to play Ruby or Sapphire? And the answer is no. There's no reason to play Ruby or Sapphire once you have played Emerald. There's no benefit whatsoever. So in that sense, that's why I'm going to put it in the same tier. Then we get the first remakes, Fire and Leaf Green, and a lot of people said that, oh, Fire and Leaf Green, they took the Gen 1 games, they cleaned up all the glitches. I mean, you could still do some glitches, but at least not. It's nowhere near as broken as the Gen 1. And of course, updated the mechanics and the graphics. So and it shows like they're good. They're good games. And to me, that's true in the sense that they cleaned up all the like obvious problems. But then it just kind of left me with, oh. So it's not just the problems that make me not really care about Gen 1. Because, again, I'm still looking at this like, these Pokemon are kind of boring, their region's kind of boring, and the story doesn't exist. And, like, there's the Sevi Islands, which I always appreciate kind of extra post-game areas to explore, but there's just not really much there to do. So, I just don't really care. This is like, I'll be honest, these are the only Pokemon games that I've owned that I actually haven't completed. Because again, I got these when they came out when I was a kid, and I got to the Elite Four, and I was just like, I don't care to finish this. I think I was like weirdly underleveled or something, and I just got to the Elite Four, and I was like, I don't want to deal with this. I just never finished the games because I didn't care, and that's kind of the thing. I'm not saying the people who made the game didn't care, but like as a player, I'm just like, yeah, it's Gen 1, and it's better, but it's Gen 1. It's still the same kind of generic. Again, compared to everything that comes after, and again, even before it. Again, Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald are, I think, way more interesting. There's way more going on than Fire, Red, and Leaf Green. Even just look at the colors. The colors of Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald pop way more than the Fire and Leaf Green colors. They're kind of muted. So I'm gonna put Fire and Leaf Green. Actually, they're higher than Gen 1, but I'm still gonna put them right there. I think Gen 2. There's a little bit more interesting going on in Gen 2 that keeps it up above Fire and Leaf Green, even though it's mechanically not as high up there. Um, so yeah. Um, this I'm looking at this like, wow, this seems like I don't like Pokemon, but like I do. Thing is, okay, in a perfect world, every game should be better than the last one, right? So ideally, it should all just be getting better and better and better. Now, it doesn't quite work like that. But the fact that the first games I think are not as good as late as the more recent ones. That's kind of how it should be. So that makes sense. And again, like C is still decent. B is pretty good. A is quite good, and S to me is like I'm not gonna say flawless, but like very, very good. So don't if like for example they're like, oh my god, he put it in B, that means he doesn't like it. That's not true, right? So anyway, speaking of which, we get to Gen 4. I think this is the one that I'm gonna get like well, Gen 4 is the gen that I dislike the most compared to what other people say, right? So again, at the time, I don't know. I feel like Gen 4 was never really disliked, but it was more sort of like, especially when it came out in like, around 2010-ish, people were kind of like, on it. They're like, it's fine, but not super interesting. But more recently, and I think it's because people who grew up with Gen 4 are now, very active online, people have been like praising Gen 4 a lot. And I don't have any like, there's nothing like broken in Gen 4, right? There's nothing like, like that, but I just don't find them super interesting. Um, Again, the story, well, I mean, it's the same kind of story as Gen 3, but Gen 3, at least Emerald had the two team thing made more interesting. With the other stuff, it's just kind of, it's fine. Characters, fine. Region, Sinnoh actually is a region. My main issue with Sinnoh is that there are some like unique places, but like all the unique places in Sinnoh are like annoying to navigate. You have the marsh, which sucks to navigate. You have the snowy areas, which suck to navigate, and you have like the foggy stuff, which sucks to navigate. So you have all these areas that like they're kind of neat, but they just suck to navigate. So it's just like, oh, I don't want to deal with this. Um, and again, people always talk about how slow the game is, and I mean, I don't think it's a huge problem, but it is an issue that they're slow. Um, Mechanically, it's definitely an improvement. The physical special split was a big improvement that they definitely needed, so that's really good. Again, Gen 4 competitive didn't really have any like major issues involved in terms of like something completely dominating anything. Um, so that's good. I don't know. I don't have any like real negative thoughts about Gen 4, but I don't really have any real positive thoughts either. It's just they're they're good, but that's it. I don't know. I just don't find anything super interesting about them. And one thing that I do not understand about I have like two main things about like what's the collective opinions about Pokemon games that I don't understand. And the first one is I've seen a lot of people say Diamond and Pearl are not that great, but Platinum is amazing. I don't understand this. Platinum is the same game as Diamond and Pearl. It's just a little bit. Some stuff has been added. And again, the story it's not even changed. It's just like been modified slightly. There's like an extra cutscene, and then Giratina shows up. Like that's it. And the thing with Charon, but he's like not even important. So there's that, and then there's the Battle Frontier. Also, they added some Pokemon to the Dex because like the Sinnoh Pokedex is like kind of terrible. Well, the Pokemon distribution in terms of the types and stuff is terrible. The new Sinnoh Pokemon themselves, again, I think they're kind of like all right. They're kind of weird too. They're kind of like Gen 2, where it's like they're weird, but some are weird bad and some are weird good. Um, but in terms, yeah, you hold like Flint, Fire type Elite Four with 2 out of 5 Fire types. It's like the why. So again, is Platinum better than Diamond Pearl? Yeah, but it's not like people act like it's like this way different experience that's so much better. And it's like it's still Gen 4. You still play through the Sinnoh region in like the same order of things basically and do the same stuff. It's like how is this different? I don't understand. I do not understand what people. If anything, I'd say Emerald is more different than its base games than Platinum is because Emerald actually changes the story a bit with the two teams. So I do not understand people. Look, if you love all three, fine. And if you hate all three, fine. But I do not understand people who say they don't like Diamond and Pearl, but they love Platinum. I don't get it. I think they're together, and I don't know how to phrase it. I'm gonna put them in B, but while Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald are kind of at the top of B, Diamond and Pearl Platinum are sort of at the bottom of B. There's definitely again mechanically they're pretty solid. I just don't find them super interesting in terms of any real aspect. Um, But okay, so now we're moving into Heart Gold Soul Silver. Now, Crystal was my first Pokemon game, so you think, oh, he's gonna have like nostalgia for Crystal, and I don't. But I feel like I kind of have it with Heart Gold Soul Silver. I don't know. It might just be the fact that I think they're really good games. Heart Gold Soul Silver. I think if there was if someone told me what single Pokemon game do you think the most people like love the most, I think I would say Heart Gold Soul Silver, and I definitely like Heart Gold Soul Silver quite a lot. Um, Again, it still suffers a bit from again the fact that it's Gen 4, so it's still a bit slow. Um, and it also suffers for the fact that it is a remake of Gen 2, so the level balancing is still kind of an issue. Um, the fact that like the Pokemon distribution is not that great. Um, Johto actually it kind of has this problem where like it kind of hides its new Pokemon a lot of the time. Again, they've helped it a little bit, but it's still not that great. But the graphics have definitely like how I said like how Ruby Sapphire and Emerald their colors pop more than Fire and Leaf Green. I feel like it's the same case here, except it's the opposite, where the remake colors pop a lot more than the originals. So Heart Gold Soul Silver's colors are a lot better than Diamond and Pearl and Platinum's colors. Um, so that helps a lot. Um, the of course people always talk about the Pokemon follow me, which honestly I don't care a ton about, but again I'd rather have it than not have it. So there's that. Again, same with the Battle Frontier that's here, and also in Platinum. Again, I'd rather have it than not have it, but again, I'm not huge about it. But I do really like the Pokeathlon. Like most of the other like contests and stuff, I'm like, yeah, it's fine, not a big deal. But I really like the Pokeathlon. That's a lot of fun. Um, and again, how they expanded the Johto region. There's the area west of Cianwood, which is good. It's fairly small, but at least there is some new stuff there. Kanto has been pretty much expanded back to how it was originally in the original games. It's a full thing. And by the way, I know that like the reason Kanto is really small in the original Gen 2 games is a cartridge space limitation thing. I know that, but still, it's a lot better here. And there's just a lot of stuff to do. There's a lot of stuff to do in these games. Again, the story is still the Gen 2 story, but they at least add some like the Team Rocket admins. Like there's Archer. That's the main guy. Uh, what's the other dudes? There's the woman. Is this Ariana? Is that her name? It's the one who looks like Silver, and the whole headcanon is that like because Giovanni is confirmed to be Silver's dad, so that like she's his mom or whatever. So they have a little bit of expanded characterization that's nice. I don't think they're the best games, but they are very solid. To me, these games are noticeably like more solid and have in terms of games that have like Dark Souls have very few problems. Again, the ones I mentioned about the Pokemon balance and that kind of stuff, that's kind of it. There isn't really much else that you could really point to. So I'm gonna put these in A. They're real solid games. And the only reason they're not an S is because there a lot of things about them are good but not great. There's very few things that are bad or meh, but there aren't a ton of stuff that I think, oh, this is excellent about the games, right? So that's kind of why I'm putting them in A. Now, Black and White. Black and White have been interesting for me because Black and White were the first Pokemon games that like I really followed from like pre-release, all the way through. So I was heavily involved with internet communities and all that kind of stuff with the pre-release of Black and White going forward. And the reaction to Black and White has been very interesting over the last 10 or so years. When Black and White first came out, people hated it. People hated these games. And it mostly came down to they hated the new Pokemon and they hated how we were forced to use new Pokemon. People hated that so much. But since then, the opinion has grown very positive about Black and White. And I would say now, I still say Heart Gold Soul Silver is like higher up, but Black and White to me is sort of like the second tier of games that like people say is really good. And it's just so interesting that people have sort of really flipped on this game where where people were hating on it so much and now people really like it. And again, I think a lot of it has to do with again the people who sort of played Black and White when they were younger kids are now online. But I just find it so interesting because it's not like people. Well, okay, here's the thing. The whole thing about the new Pokemon Black and White, I've always really liked it. I've really liked the fact that they force us to use new Pokemon. So I really liked that. And honestly, people are like, oh, they just made a bunch of clones of old Pokemon. I don't really mind that either, because to be honest, I like most of the Gen 5 ones better. Because here's the thing, I really like the Gen 5 Pokemon, like a lot. Like Gen 5 Pokemon overall are my favorite Pokemon. Again, there's definitely some bad designs. I'm not disputing that. But overall, they're the best designs. They look great. There's so many Pokemon. If you were just like, oh, but the garbage bag and the ice cream cone, it's like you're missing so many amazing Gen 5 Pokemon. Like Volcarona, Haxorus, Galvantula, Gigalith, Bisharp, Braviary, Hydreigon, Jellicent, Chandelure. I could keep going. Crocodile, Excadrill. There's so many great Pokemon in Gen 5, and Gen 5 still, because like I've seen people like, oh, I want, I'll have less Pokemon if they're good versus a ton of Pokemon that are bad, but like, or you could have a lot of Pokemon where most of them are good, which again to me is Gen 5. So I love the Gen 5 Pokemon. I like the fact they made us, use the new ones, and the story, people have always generally been pretty positive on the story, but most people who didn't like the game were sort of like, yeah, the story's good, but like, who cares, because blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I do like the story of Black and White. I don't think it's the best story of Pokemon. It is the best so far, for sure, with the characterization and everything going on. So that's definitely true. The biggest issue with Black and White 1 is lack of post-game. Now, I'm generally not, again, I've said that I don't really care a ton about Battle Frontier, but there needs to be stuff to do. And especially, again, as we've gone through the games, they've added more and more post-game stuff, right? Gen 1, like, is Cerulean Cave, that's it. Gen 2, I mean, I guess Kanto, but most people don't count that. They count Kanto and Johto as being, and up to Red being the game. So then there's kind of nothing there either. Gen 3, there is, again, the optional areas to explore. There's the Reggies. In Emerald, there's the Battle Frontier, right? They're starting to get more stuff. Gen 4, there's that island in the northeast. Again, there's the with Heatran. Other legendaries like Giratina. In Diamond and Pearl, you have the Frontier and Platinum, right? And so it is expanding, and Black and White 1 is a step back in terms of post-game. There is a fair amount of places to go to, the whole eastern area of the region, which I like, but again, in terms of what do you do there, there's Kyurem, and you can fight Cynthia, and there's the Black City, White Forest that like nobody cares about, and like that's it. So yeah, that is definitely the biggest problem. And also, people like to crap on Unova, but I don't know. I like Unova. I don't love it, but it has kind of its own like visual style to it. I said like the colors don't really pop like Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald, but I don't know. It's sort of a nice feeling to me. I don't know why. So I like Unova. Love the new Pokemon. Story's good. It just suffers a bit in terms of lack of content, but again, I don't even think it's that bad. Considering the main content is quite good. So I'm gonna put these in A, but below Heart Gold Soul Silver. But they're pretty dang close. It's just sort of where do you stand? Like again, story and characters in Heart Gold Soul Silver are sort of fine. Are sort of like but like not bad, but like just kind of okay. But the content's really good. This is sort of the opposite, where the story and characters is quite good, and the content's just sort of okay. So how do you balance that? I think overall I am going to give the edge to Heart Gold Soul Silver, but I still like Black and White quite a lot. Black and White 2, I'll just say straight up, are my favorite Pokemon games. Black and White 2 are my favorite Pokemon games. And again, if it wasn't, like, Heart Gold, Soul Silver, and Black and White 2 are sort of the games that I've seen are given the most praise. And along with Platinum, which, again, I don't really understand why people just talk about Platinum. Anyway, whatever. Black and White 2, really the only thing I can say negative about them is that the story is slightly worse than Black and White 1. But even then, it's not even bad. I don't think people act like Black and White 2 story is bad. It's not bad. The whole thing about, like, again, the new plasma versus the old plasma, I think that's an interesting conflict. Again, it's kind of similar to Emerald a little bit in that sense. The fact that you start in the different part of the region, there's a bunch of new areas at the beginning. You explore the post-game area of Black and White 1 as part of the main game, Black and White 2. I don't know, they've changed a lot of things up, and there's a lot of bonus content here. There's a lot of extra areas to explore, and with, like, reasons to do so. There's a bunch of legendaries all over the place. There's, instead of just like Cynthia to fight, there's a bunch of other people to fight as well, like Colress and like the Striaton gym leaders. You can fight them. The Game Freak dudes. And then of course this Pokemon World Tournament. There's just Black and White 2 have probably the most content of any Pokemon game. Well, yeah. Unless you're counting Sword and Shield DLC. I'm not at the moment anyway when I say that. So there's a ton of content. Everything in the games I think is good. Not all of it is amazing. Again, I think like the story is not amazing. But it's still quite good. And even though I did say that the fact that Black and White 1 let us use only new Pokemon, the fact that Black and White 2 expanded that to be about half new, half old, I think that was also good. So it's this balance. It feels like, okay, we had this great new stuff in Black and White 1. Let's continue having that great stuff while also putting in some extra things, and also bringing in some old things as well. It just feels super complete to me. So Black and White 2 are my favorite Pokemon games, but I could see them sort of replacing them, because it's not like Black and White 2, it's not like every aspect of these games is the best it's ever been. That's not quite true, but I am putting these in S. These are my favorite Pokemon games. And then we get to X and Y. Okay, so here's the thing. I don't hate X and Y. I don't hate X and Y. They're not the worst Pokemon games. But you'll notice that every Pokemon game, especially if you look at the first version, so Red, Blue, Gold, Silver, Ruby, Sapphire, Diamond, Pearl, Black and White 1, they're almost all, mostly they get better, right? Again, Diamond and Pearl I think is a little bit worse than Ruby, Sapphire, but everything goes in. And you can see in general, I think the games have been getting better and better. X and Y are the biggest drop in quality from the previous games. There are good things about X and Y. Mechanically, they're very sound. Like, even though there's no big additions to what was happening, the fact that, again, there's a lot of little stuff that's really nice, like how electric types can't be paralyzed anymore, grass types are immune to powder moves, and like mega evolutions, I'm a little mixed on them, but mechanically, I think they're fine. My only issue is, again, the whole thing about how, a lot of overpowered Pokemon got. Honestly, I'm not even that annoyed by that. My main issue is that, like, it's sort of, as a replacement of an actual evolution, I find it a little bit problematic. And the other thing, and also they're an issue with something else about X and Y, which is just that it seems these games were afraid to stand out and try something and try new things. And I think it feels like X and Y feels very reactionary to that initial wave of hate that Black and White 1 got. Because Black and White 1, it was, again, all these tons of new Pokemon, and this, and it was really story character focused. Then what do we get for X and Y? We get a game that has like very little story and characters that suck, and they bury their new Pokemon. There's, again, the only 70 or so Pokemon. If you do out of the 450 in Kalos, if you do the percentages, it's like only 15% of the Pokemon in Kalos are new, which is the worst it's ever been. Like, it's not, so it's like they're burying these Pokemon. And there's just nothing new or exciting in these games. And like the 3D graphics at the time, they're like, oh yeah, they're kind of nice. But looking back at them now, yeah, they're not that great. There's very little in X and Y that stands out in any way whatsoever. And the thing about X and Y is that it feels like it's burying the new stuff, and it's really like, oh, don't worry that you had to use all those new Pokemon before. Here's all these old familiar things, and like they give you a Kanto starter. Oh, you don't even have to use these weird new starters. Here's one that you know about, and it gets Mega Evolutions that they just give you the stone for. And that's kind of my thing with Megas, where it's like, sure, I don't have a problem with it mechanically, but you're still using an old Pokemon that, in terms of carrying them around in your team, you see the old Pokemon most of the time, right? So it feels very afraid to do new things, and that's sort of the biggest problem. Well, okay, the other biggest problem is, again, they're piss easy. And, like, I don't think Pokemon games should be, like, super difficult. I don't think any of them are flat out hard. There are a couple kind of difficult moments in some of the games, but X and Y is too easy. They're too easy. And so, yeah, it's just... I said how Diamond, Pearl, Platinum, to me, are, like, built on a really solid foundation, but the gameplay, the actual what they have there in terms of story, characters, and region is sort of like, okay. X and Y is like the more extreme version of that, where the mechanically is quite solid, but just what they have is just so not inspiring. And so it's kind of difficult for me to place these, because my opinion of these has dropped. When I was kind of thinking about these, back after they were released, my opinion was already kind of but like they have dropped. I'm gonna put them at the top of C tier. I'm going to put them above Gen 2, which is probably going to get people mad. But my argument is that, like, again, mechanically, they're still really solid. Like Gen 6 competitive was, I think, actually pretty good for the most part. There's definitely some problematic stuff. But it felt like pretty... so that works out. Yeah, it's a hard balance to make, though, for where to put them, especially compared to like the older games of where you would, like, if someone said X and Y were their least favorite Pokemon games, I wouldn't be surprised. I'll phrase it that way. So Yeah. Then we have Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. Now, these are interesting games because Fire and Leaf Green are clearly better than Red, Blue, and Yellow, and Heart Gold, Soul Silver are clearly better than Gold, Silver, and Crystal. Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, I can see people making the argument that they're not as good as the original games. And granted, most of the time that's usually when people talk about how they don't have a Battle Frontier and that they're also stupid easy like X and Y. Here's the thing, they are too easy. That is the biggest problem. Again, they're too easy. They should not be this easy. Um, and also, again, I know I said I don't really care a ton about the Battle Frontier, but if there is a game that should have a Battle Frontier, it should be the remake of the games that originally had the Battle Frontier. So yeah, these games should have had a Battle Frontier. Having the little like statue thing on the Maison Island was dumb. That was no. And look, they had no Pokemon game because these came out in 2014. There was no main Pokemon game in 2015. If they were like worried about, they should have just delayed them and just have them come out in 2015 with the Battle Frontier, whatever. But they did a lot of stuff with these games. They added again the fact that there were a bunch of new megas, so that's kind of neat to see that. I do again since megas are more like celebrations of older Pokemon. I think they fit better in remakes anyway. So I think that works out quite well there. And they expanded on the story. They've added a lot more character to the characters, which helps a lot. And the whole climax of the stories with like from the C4 cavern to the Cave of Origin, like that's just a really good moment in terms of like the presentation of it all, and just like here's the climax, and it's like yeah, this actually feels climactic. It feels like pretty awesome. So yeah, that works there. The Delta episode is cool. The whole Mirage Island thing and like all the legendaries you can get through the soaring, like that was all really cool. But they are definitely held back by being too easy. And again, the whole lack of Battle Frontier does hurt in that sense. So I am going to put them above Gen 3, but I can at least see the argument that they are below. But yeah, so I'm going to put them up here at the top of B. They're definitely not perfect games. Main issue, they're just way too easy. But I think they're better than some people give them credit for. Because again, people like to say, "Oh, the Alpha Sapphire are like, they tore up Gen 3, they ruined Gen 3," and I'm like, no, they didn't. Right? Even if you think that they are worse than Gen 3, I don't think they're way worse. So, yeah. And then we get to Sun and Moon. I said there were two things I don't understand about the general opinion of Pokemon, and the first was again the whole thing about Platinum. The second is that there is a decently sized percent of people that hate Sun and Moon. And I think you're crazy. I think you're crazy. The only criticism I can release about Sun and Moon is again it's like lack of content. People say Sun and Moon have like no content, but they do have content. Like in terms of again ignoring the enhanced versions, I think Sun and Moon have the most content of any Pokemon games. Again, comparing Red, Blue, Gold, Silver, Ruby, Sapphire, Diamond, Pearl, Black and White 1, XY, and Sun and Moon. Sun and Moon have the most. Not only do you have, again, new areas to explore on the Pony Island, so there's new exploration, there's the Ultra Beast things, that's kind of new story elements, and also new legendaries to catch. Again, the Battle Tree is, not a frontier, which is kind of not great, but it's something. And I know I'm missing... Oh, there's the Battle Royale thing, and then... I know I'm missing something else. There's at least something else. But anyway, there's a decent amount of stuff here. And then, of course, the story. People complain that, it's unskippable cutscenes. I never really had a problem with them. I don't know. I just, I played through the game. The characters, I think, are great. The story... When I said, I thought Black and White 1 did not have the best story, that's because I think Sun and Moon have the best story. There's some actually pretty good atmosphere and moments of emotion that work quite well in these games. And... these games are not super easy. Again, they're not hard. I'm not saying they're hard by any means, but again, they're not like piss easy like XY or S. They're challenge. The challenge to me feels comparable to the other games, basically. The fact they changed up the stuff that's new, like the whole thing about the totem Pokemon and the trials, that's new and it's really different, and it was a refreshing change of pace. Again, I think that they shouldn't have permanently switched to island trials. But it was a nice change of pace. And something else I don't understand is people talk about how Sun and Moon they talk about Sun and Moon they didn't change up enough. But they did. They changed up a lot. So I don't really get that. The design of Alola and kind of how you travel it, I think, is interesting. And just I really like Sun and Moon. Again, the content is not amazing, but it's not bad. That's kind of the only thing I can really point to as being like, any really thing against it. I don't know. I don't understand the people's problems with these games. I really don't. I don't get it. So I'm putting Sun and Moon in S. I really like Sun and Moon. I'm gonna put them below Black and White 1, Black and White 2. But I really like Sun and Moon, and I think I know there are a lot of people who still do really like Sun and Moon, but there's definitely because when Sun and Moon first came out, it was like all praise. Everyone was like, "Oh, Sun and Moon are excellent, fantastic. We love these games." But like in the years since then, there's been this steady amount of people growing that seem to be like, "No, Sun and Moon are bad and terrible." So yeah, I don't know. Now, Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, I'm putting these in don't know. Here's the thing: I've played these games. Well, I played Ultra Sun, Ultra. I don't even remember which one I actually have. Um, but I played through it. I beat it, and the reason I don't know, there's multiple reasons I don't know. For one, I disagree with the main criticism that everyone has about these games, and it's that again, like what people said about Sun and Moon, they didn't change enough. There's not enough things. And to that I say, what are you talking about? They by far changed the most of any of these enhanced versions from the original game. They added a bunch of stuff. There's the ultra wormhole stuff. There's the Mantine surfing thing. There's a bunch of random little shit with like there's like these kind of little side questy kind of things that's around. They like changed the story around to have this whole Ultra Recon squad and the whole Necrozma thing. So that's been changed. They expanded the Pokemon that are available. There's flat out new Pokemon with like Poipole and the other Ultra Beasts. So like they changed by far the most of any of these third versions. So that criticism I just do not agree with at all. But a lot of the changes, well, not a lot of them, but some of them make the game worse. Namely with the story. All of the main story changes are just worse. They're worse, and especially like Lucamine's character just like sucks in this game. It's just like they took all of the actual good things about her character and just were like, whatever. So like that sucks. And a lot of the new stuff, even though it's different, it's sort of like okay. Well, I don't know. You don't have a strong opinion about that. Like the best thing is the whole Ultra Wormhole stuff is cool. That's cool. But like again, I mentioned the Mantine surfing, but it's like not that interesting, to do, and yeah, it's such a weird standpoint where it's like I don't really know what to think about these games because again they're Sun and Moon, but just like how they're based on Sun and Moon, but like all these other games, again, Yellow is just Red and Blue but better, Emerald is Ruby Sapphire but better, but Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, they are Sun and Moon, but are they better? I don't think so, but like where do I put them though? Because I really like Sun and Moon, but like even if they're based on Sun and Moon, they should still be pretty high, but I don't know. And here's the other thing. I said how the enhanced versions, my test with the enhanced versions was if you play the enhanced versions, there are reason to play the originals, right? So again, if you've played Emerald and beaten it, is there a reason to then play Ruby and Sapphire? No. However, if you play Black and White 2 first, is there a reason to play Black and White 1? Yeah, because they're ultimately different experiences in terms of playing through the games. So that's why I have them different, and I view them differently than an enhanced version. But if you play Ultra Sun or Ultra Moon first, is there a reason to then go back and play the original Sun and Moon? And I'm not sure how to answer that, because this story is not exactly a ton different. It's like Black and White 2 story is a completely different story from Black and White 1 story. This is not completely different, but is somewhat different. And I think the original Sun and Moons is better, but there is more stuff to do in these games. So like I don't know how to feel. I don't know. I do not know how to feel about these games. I really don't. And again, I completely disagree with the seemingly general consensus that they didn't change enough, because that's just not true. But, yeah, I don't know how to feel about these games. The Let's Go games, they're also in don't know just because I haven't played them. And honestly, I don't really care to. They just, to me, they don't stick out as the kind of game I would care to play. And I remember when these games were first announced in like mid 2018, people were pissed. They were like, "Oh my god, how could you do this to us? Where's Gen 8?" And I'm like, this is clearly its own thing. Like, why is everyone so freaking out about this? And I was like, yeah, I don't care about these games either, but like they're their own thing. Like I don't. So what, right? It's just I don't care. And like, yeah, I'm sure people who have played them who like them, fine. I'm just thinking they're not really for me, so I don't have an opinion on them. they'll probably it's like do I think that it's likely that they'll continue and make like Let's Go Togepi and Meryl? Probably. That's fine. Will I buy it? Probably not. That's also fine. If you can get if there are people who really like Pokemon Go and then through the Let's Go games end up transitioning into the main series games, I think that's a good thing. I don't have a problem with these games existing. I just don't have a particular opinion on them because I don't think I would really care to play them. Simple as that. That's why they don't know. And also, honestly, I don't think they should be on this list. If I'm being honest, because I know they've said like, oh, these are main games, but like, they're not though. They're not. They do play different than these other games. To me, I view the Let's Go games kind of in the same tier as like Pokemon Coliseum and XD, where like, yeah, they are like Pokemon RPGs where the gameplay and mechanics are kind of the same, but they're not the same games. They're not. There is a spin-off twist to what the base formula is. So I don't think they should be on this list, to be honest, but they are, so I'm gonna put them there. Then we get Sword and Shield. Oh boy. These games, at least in recent memory, I think are the most overhated games I can think of. Now, here's the thing. I don't love these games. I don't. I have problems with these games. But the degree that people hate these games is unreal. People hate Sword and Shield. They hate it so much. And it's not just Dexit. Like that, I don't even want to talk about that because I don't really care. But they tear into these games so much and how Game Freak's out of ideas and they're lazy and all this stuff. And like here's the thing, I don't necessarily disagree with a lot of what people say. Like for example, people say the story's kind of not that great. And yeah, the story isn't that great. The wild area is a good idea, but it's kind of it should be utilized a bit more. People talk about how like the routes feel kind of bare and don't have much to do with them. I don't really mind the routes, but I do agree that, for example, people talk about how there's literally just two caves and they're called Gallermine 1 and Gallermine 2. That sucks. And like, yeah, that does suck, right? So that's not great. I do think the Gen 8 Pokemon are pretty good. Oh, I totally forgot to talk about the Gen 6 and Gen 7 Pokemon. Gen 6 Pokemon I think are kind of alright. Not super interesting, but they're fine. Gen 7, I do like Gen 7 quite a lot. And I like Gen 8 quite a lot too. So my favorite, Gen 5 is still my favorite, but then it's a second is Gen 7, and then third is Gen 8. And then fourth, Gen B, Gen 3. But so I like those. And the thing is, there's a lot of decent like stuff in this story, but it just doesn't come together cohesively. Like the fact that the gym challenge is an actual like kind of story component is really nice because it always felt kind of disconnected from everything. So that's good. And the whole kind of friendly rivalry with Hop and that is actually done pretty well too. But like it just doesn't really connect with anything. Like again, the whole stuff with Rose, like it's not bad, and the whole idea that like here's someone who he is doing this bad thing because he thinks we have to do this or else we're gonna have energy. Like that's actually kind of an interesting idea that they could explore, but they just kind of don't explore it. They just bring it up kind of out of nowhere randomly near the end, and then just don't touch on it anymore. And then like the stuff with Bede is just kind of its own little plot thing that just sort of happens, and then the stuff with Marnie is completely irrelevant to everything else. It's completely irrelevant. It has nothing to do with anything else. So that's kind of my problem with the story. It's all disconnected. And so like that is an issue. I will say the fact that they're doing DLC with these sort of updates, like I think, and not like a third version, I think is a good idea. Because I don't really see how an enhanced version would really help too much besides just, here's new stuff to do. And so there's DLC for that, right? So I think that's fine. I haven't actually played the DLC, so I can't really comment on it specifically. So when I'm going to be tiering these, I'm going to be doing it based off of the base Sword and Shield game. But yeah, I don't really have any issues with that. Oh my god, I forgot to talk about the Alolan forms, the Galar forms. I really like the regional forms, by the way. I think they're better ideas than the Megas. Because you think, oh, but it's just old Pokemon again. Yeah, but like you're always having them in their new form, right? And a lot of them just play fundamentally differently all the time, right? If you have a Mega Lucario, a lot of the times it's still just a Lucario. Whereas if you have a Alolan Marowak, it's always a Alolan Marowak. It plays as a Alolan Marowak, not regular Marowak. So I do think having only Kanto Pokemon have those in Sun and Moon is not great. They should have switched it up, which they did in Sword and Shield, so good. Yeah, so honestly, I think Sword and Shield are just sort of like kind of neutral in terms of like they're kind of in the middle. I think they're in the middle of for these games, but largely not neutral because again I think neutral is kind of near the lower end for Pokemon games. But yeah, I think they're solid games. They're not perfect by any means. There's definitely some issues, and there are a lot of things that other games do better. But I don't really think there's much that the games do that bad. I really don't. I think people are overhating these way too much. Um, and here's the thing: I will say this: if you were mad at them announcing Let's Go games in 2018 because you wanted your Gen 8 game in 2018, but now you're mad at Sword and Shield for not having enough content, you are out of your mind. Because I think the biggest problem that Game Freak has right now is that since they're so constrained by deadlines because of Pokemon being this multimedia franchise with like the anime and stuff going on, you can't just like delay a game, especially the start of a generation, right? And that's a problem. And this whole 3-year development cycle, that's definitely been the case since Black and White. I think is kind of problematic because if you'll notice, especially with the shift to new hardware, again, like Black and White on the DS, really good. Switch to the 3DS for X and Y, it wasn't that great. But then, they got their feet under them for Sun and Moon. Okay, got better. But then switched the hardware to the Switch, and then it dropped again. So, yeah, I think that is a problem. And I think, based on the fact that the anime said that they're sort of like doing their own kind of thing for a bit, I think that's good. Here's what I would do. 2020 is definitely the year of the DLC, which I'm fine with. 2021 should be either Let's Go Johto or Diamond Pearl remakes. Probably Let's Go Johto, I think, actually fits better for 2021. The 2022 would be the Diamond Pearl remakes, and then 2023 would be Gen 9. So that gives you, and honestly, if you keep that up, where so if you have year 1 is the start of a gen, year 2 is DLC on those games, year 3 is like a Let's Go game, and year 4 is a remake, that's fine. Honestly, I think that's better because it's a 4-year dev cycle for the main games. And I think that would help a lot in terms of expanding, giving them more time to do things. And because you have to remember, there's a lot more shit they have to deal with now since they have, 900 Pokemon running around. And it's 3D models now. There's a lot more stuff to put into place. It's not just like, the amount of time you need to deal with the Pokemon in Ruby and Sapphire. They need a lot more time to deal with that now. So, yeah, I think that's the best course of action, is that they should sort of switch to sort of 4-year dev cycles with these games. But again, I don't think these games are that bad. I'm going to put them, and some people are really going to hate me for this, I'm going to put them here. And I think, this could change though. These could definitely change. If I do get into the DLC and I really like the DLC, then they actually could go up a little bit. Or if I, maybe a couple years later down the line, I might put them below Gen 4. I highly doubt I'm gonna put them below X and Y though. But yeah, I think this looks right to me. This looks right to me. I don't. Again, all of these games, I don't dislike any of these games. Even back to Red, Blue, and Yellow, the fundamental just experience of Pokemon is still just fun. They're decent games. All of these games are at least decent. Some of them I don't really know exactly how to think about them, or I just haven't played them. But this is what I would say about these games. And I think, to me, this seems, I feel confident for this for now. The main questions, again, is exactly where Sword and Shield would fall. I could see them dropping maybe below Diamond or Platinum, but that's kind of it in that case. And I'm just curious here. Let's look at the community ranking here. This is going to show kind of what everyone thought about. Oh, so let's see. Yep, see, look, everyone shit Sword and Shield at the bottom. I knew it. I knew Sword and Shield was going to be dumped at the bottom, and everyone's going to hate on them because again, the tier was originally had a D tier on there. So I knew that was going to happen. Let's go. Yeah, I'm not surprised about this because again, people really hated these to begin with, but there's a decent amount of people who like these games too. B tier. To be honest, I'm kind of surprised XY and Sun and Moon aren't lower, especially XY. I'm actually kind of surprised are in B. Same with the Ultra games. I'm actually surprised because people hate on the Ultra games a lot. Gen 1 being in B tier, I think that was actually I'm kind of surprised at that. You might think they'd be higher, but yeah, that's like, okay, B tier here is actually kind of reasonable, more than I thought it would be. A tier, yeah, Fire and the Queen being an A tier to me is too high, but I know people like it. Diamond and Pearl, yeah, okay. Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire, okay, yeah. Crystal, see, how do you put Crystal in a separate tier from Gold and Silver? They're the same freaking game. There's so little difference between them. That doesn't make any sense to me. Ruby Sapphire, yeah. But then, like, Platinum. Okay, look, Platinum is, okay, you have these games in B. Platinum is the highest game in S tier. Like, why? Why is there this disconnect? Here, I don't get it. And, like, Emerald, yeah, being higher. I don't understand these third version thing. But, yeah, okay. Heart Gold, Soul Silver, Black and White 2, being in S tier. I'm actually very surprised Black and White 1 is in S tier. Again, these games got a lot of love recently, but even still, I'm kind of surprised they're all the way in S tier. But Arcade Soul Silver, Black 2 and White 2, Emerald and Platinum being in S tier is not surprising to me at all. I just think they're wrong. That, well, not only in my opinion, but Emerald and Platinum should not be in a separate tier from the original games. They shouldn't. I'm sorry. They should not. Same with Crystal. The Crystal is even more nonsensical, to be honest. But yeah, this is not that surprising to me. If anything, the most surprising aspect of all of this is that X and Y are as high as they are, because again, people hate on them, and again, the Ultra games are as high as they are. Sun and Moon averaging out to being B is actually not that surprising to me, because again, no, some people love it and some people hate it, but the others I'm actually kind of surprised at. But yeah, everything else honestly kind of makes sense. So, yeah, that's kind of my opinion on the Pokemon games. My ideal Pokemon game would be Sun and Moon's actual like story and characters and progression through the main game with Black and White 2's content. That would be my ideal game in that sense there. So hopefully we could get it soon. Again, considering how much better Sun and Moon was than X and Y, maybe Gen 9 could be that. I don't know. I know there's a lot of people excited about Diamond and Pearl remakes. I'm not like, well, I don't know, I'm just kind of like, yeah, okay. I don't know. I'm not super excited about Diamond and Pearl remakes. Because I just don't. Again, Diamond and Pearl themselves, I'm just kind of neutral on, and I honestly can't think of like what like big things they could bring to the table that would make the games, feel fresh and new. I am actually, what I'm really curious about is how are they going to remake Black and White? I don't know, because like, are they just gonna ignore Black and White 2? But like, or are they gonna try to have it be like part of it also? I don't know. If anything, I think they should just do a Black and White 3. They should just say screw it, do Black and White 3. I think that would be interesting. But yeah. So there you go. Back to what I had. Is it going to delete it? Nope. Everything's back to where it was. Okay. So yeah, that's my Pokemon tier list. You can share your thoughts in the opinion in opinions in the comments. Tell me how wrong and horrible my opinions are. Whatever. Just try to make sense. But for now, that's that. Completely random, different style of video. There you go. Then next Monday we'll be back to the movie Monday stuff because my entire they did get their power back, but we just were too late to watch and record anything. So yeah, they have their power. We'll be ready for that next week, and yeah. So next week will be Bill Street Could Talk Movie Monday. See you then.